So after completing the washing of the deceased body, we will now go through the process of the takfeen and the tahneet. We'll show you step by step how these obligatory aspects should be performed. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. After the completion of the important 3 steps of the washing of the deceased body, the next part, which is obligatory, is to perform what's known as takfeen, coupled with what's known as tahneet. These are obligatory parts. Now the kafan, the shroud, is usually indicative of the end of the person's life. In other words, it's something that's white and it's something that covers the entire body. It needs to be completely large enough to cover the body entirely. Also, it is highly recommended to prepare one's own shroud. In a narration, whomsoever prepares their own shroud will not be of those who are absent-minded. When it comes to the covering of the body, it is a matter of respect to honor the body that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given, and for it to be buried with this particular covering. Notice that an individual throughout their lives, if they had their body exposed for any reason, or for example females who are Muslim and had not covered their hair, had not adorned the Islamic dress code of hijab, will still have to be covered once they die with a kafan. Now we're starting the process of takfeen, otherwise known as shrouding. What we're going to do is cover the body with 3 pieces of cloth. These 3 pieces of cloth are absolutely essential. The first one that we're going to show you is called the azar. Now the azar is something that is a chadar that covers the entire body. The second piece of cloth is called the qamis. It's one that covers the body from the shoulders to the mid-shank, and it's like so. And the third cloth is called the mi'zar. It's like a loincloth that covers the area between the navel and the knees as so. The next stage is called tahneet. This is the placing of camphor powder on the 7 parts whereby normally an individual places on the ground in sajda prostration. Tahneet is wajib, obligatory. And we start with the niyyah. I am placing camphor powder on the 7 areas of the body where normally we do sajda qurbatan ilallahi ta'ala. Usually somebody who has a wet hands just wets the area starting with the forehead, and then the camphor powder is placed on that particular area. Then we move on towards the knees, and then the toes. And finally, the palms of the hands. Now, before we do the takfeen, placing the shroud over the body, it's recommended to cover the private area with a sort of cloth, a diaper or a nappy or something that covers the private area, just to ensure that impurities or any najasa don't later on somehow become excreted onto the shroud itself. So we're about to start the takfeen, the shrouding process. But before that, it's recommended to apply a small amount of the blessed soil from the grave of Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam on the chest of the particular deceased individual, as well as the right cheeks as well. Once this is applied, now we make the intention for the takfeen, the shrouding of the body. I am performing the takfeen of the deceased qurbatan ila Allahi ta'ala. So the first part that we're going to use is the mi'zar, the loin cloth that covers between the navels and the knees. Now, having used the mi'zar, the loincloth, the second one we're going to use now is the qamis. And it's going to be pulled over like this, like so. And then gently we cover the body, as so. It's recommended to use what's known as the twigs, the jarida, and to place them under the armpits as soon as we've done the qamis part of the takfeen. So we place them as so, just under the armpits. The final part of this particular process of takfeen is using the izar, the massive sheet that covers the body. Now, ideally, this should be done in a very organized, special way, so the body looks very much covered entirely, and it's in a respectful manner, as this will be the way that the body will then be transferred towards the grave itself. So we hold the azar, the sheet, from the middle, and we take the end point and then we place it, somehow making sure that the line is presented as so. And now we take the other side, we place it as so, we hold it like this, and now it's as follows. So now what we have to do is tie the body using some small strings of cloth in 5 different places. So we start at the top of the head, and then at the chest, and at the waist, just above the knees, and at the feet as well. But it's important what we tie is that we do not tie it too strong or many times, because these then have to be opened at the time of the burial in the cemetery. So we tie them like so. As you can see, the way that it's tied is that just by opening this, it will open up easily. As for the shroud, the kafan, there are 3 important criteria or requirements for it. Number 1, it must be pure, tahir. Number 2, it must be mubah. In other words, something that is not usurped And number 3, it must not be made from pure silk. These 3 are essential requirements for the kafan. Now, of course, there are some individuals who obtain these shrouds that contain certain supplications or certain verses of the Holy Quran as well. It is recommended to use a white cloth, a kafan, as the main one, and to perhaps place those ones purchased from holy sites or placed on holy shrines on top of this at the time of the burial. The specific recommendation is that the shroud should contain dua Jawshan al-Saghir as well as dua Jawshan al-Kabir. The body of the deceased has now been completely washed according to Islamic principles and instructions, and now shrouded too. It is now ready for Salatul Mayyit, the prayer of the deceased, after which the burial can take place.